In 1963, a commodities trader convinced some of the biggest financial institutions in America that he owned massive reserves of soybean oil, millions of dollars worth, stored safely in tanks, ready to be used as collateral. There was just one problem. Most of that oil didn't exist. And when the truth came out, it triggered losses of over $180 million, nearly collapsed a financial giant, and exposed one of the most unbelievable frauds in American history. Today, we hear about complex financial scams, crypto frauds, accounting manipulation, but decades earlier, one man pulled off a scheme so simple, it almost sounds impossible. This is the story of the Great Salad Oil Swindle and the man behind it, Tino de Angelis, in the early 1960s. The commodities market was booming. Soybean oil was in high demand. Used in food production, cooking, and industrial applications, prices were rising. And with that came opportunity. Tino de Angelis saw that opportunity. He was a trader. But more importantly, he understood the system. He understood something most people didn't, that in finance, perception can be more valuable than reality. He knew that banks were willing to lend money based on collateral, physical goods stored in warehouses, verified by inspectors, documented through receipts. If you had the inventory, you could get the money. So he created the inventory, or at least the illusion of it. De Angelis set up storage facilities, large tanks, industrial scale. Impressive, convincing from the outside. Everything looked legitimate. Everything looked real. But here's where the fraud becomes almost unbelievable. Instead of filling the tanks completely with oil, he filled them mostly with water, and on top of the water, he added a thin layer of oil because oil floats. When inspectors arrived, they checked the surface. They saw oil, they measured it, they approved it, they signed off on it, but they never checked deep enough. No one questioned what was underneath. And that was the entire scam. A simple physical trick, turned into a multi-million-dollar illusion. Using this method, De Angelis claimed to own vast quantities of soybean oil, far more than he actually had, millions of dollars worth, on paper. He then used that oil as collateral. Banks issued loans, large loans, repeated loans, based on warehouse receipts, based on inspections, based on trust. And that trust became the foundation of the fraud. The illusion grew, bigger, stronger, more convincing. On paper, De Angelis was running a massive commodities operation, profitable, asset-rich, stable. But in reality, it was all built on water, and as long as no one questioned it, the system worked. More loans came in, more money flowed, the fraud expanded. At its peak, De Angelis controlled what appeared to be a huge portion of the soybean oil market. Influence increased, confidence increased, and with it, risk increased. But like every fraud, it depended on one thing: silence. No deep inspection, no detailed verification, no one asking the right questions, and more importantly, no one wanting to believe that something so simple could be so wrong, because sometimes the biggest weakness in any system is assumption. Eventually, that silence broke. Investigators began to suspect irregularities. Numbers didn't fully align. Some transactions raised concerns. Inventory levels seemed unrealistic. The scale didn't make sense. So they decided to take a closer look. And this time, they didn't just look at the surface. When the tanks were finally tested properly, the truth was exposed. Instead of oil, there was mostly water, a thin layer of oil. Hiding a massive lie, the illusion collapsed instantly. Banks realized their collateral was worthless. Loans could not be recovered. Financial exposure spread rapidly. Losses hit multiple institutions. Confidence evaporated. The total damage reached around $180 million, a massive amount at the time. One of the biggest victims was American Express. The company had backed warehouse receipts tied to the oil, believing them to be legitimate when the fraud was revealed. Its stock price crashed, confidence dropped sharply, and for a moment, even American Express faced serious uncertainty. The market reacted with shock. Because this wasn't a complex fraud, it wasn't hidden behind advanced systems. It was simple, almost embarrassingly simple. And yet, it fooled some of the smartest institutions in the country. Banks, auditors, inspectors, all relied on surface-level verification. And that trust was exploited. Angelis was eventually exposed, arrested, and prosecuted. His empire disappeared as quickly as it had appeared. But the impact of the scandal went far beyond one man. It forced a complete rethink: how commodities were verified, how collateral was inspected, how financial institutions assessed risk. Because the lesson was clear: trust is not enough. Verification is everything. And sometimes, the biggest risks are hidden in the simplest assumptions. Today, the story still feels relevant, from financial bubbles to startup frauds to crypto collapses. The pattern remains the same: a strong story, convincing numbers, and a system that people don't question deeply enough until it's too late. So what do you think? Was Tino de Angelis a clever manipulator who understood the system? Or just someone who exploited a weakness everyone ignored? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Because in finance, value is often based on belief, and belief is built on trust. But when trust replaces verification, even water can be sold as oil. And when that illusion breaks, everything built on it comes crashing down